It was a warm autumn day in October, and I woke up that morning and I decided, because it was unseasonably warm, it was a good day to wash my windows. So I got up and I decided not to shower that day because I was just going to be getting sweaty washing windows, and I didn't put my makeup on or anything. So I got up and I threw on my old jeans and I got my cleaning supplies out, and I noticed that I did not have enough Windex to take me through the day. So I decided that instead of getting started washing my windows, I would run to Walmart and pick up some more Windex and come back and do my windows. So I was working for another company at the time, and I drove to Walmart, and on my way to Walmart, I passed a Baby Lock store. And something inside of me said, you need to go in there. You know, you have those things. You have to have that. So I ignored the voice because, number one, I did not have my makeup on, and I don't let a dog see me without makeup. Number two, I had not showered, and I usually don't go anywhere unwashed. And number three, I didn't have any reason to go in there. This was a perfect day for doing my windows. I think it had been a couple years. Being a quilter, windows is not on my radar. And so I passed the place and went on to the light, and this overwhelming feeling, you need to go in there now. Not tomorrow, not next week, now. I thought, okay, don't know what that's about. You know how it is. So I turned around and went back up the side road to my Baby Lock dealer, and I walked in there. It was early enough in the morning, there were no customers. But who was there was the local regional sales rep for Baby Lock. Now remember, I'm working for another company, and I don't know these people, and they don't know me. So I started asking questions about the 12-needle embellisher. I had been doing some experimental things, not much in my opinion, I thought, and I had noticed by this time that there was very little information out there about what to do with a needle felting machine. And maybe some of you have found that as well. I had by this time ordered books from Amazon on felting or needle felting, and it was quite different. There was really nothing out there about this machine. So I thought, okay, I don't know why I'm in here, so I'm just going to ask questions about this machine. So the regional sales manager said, well, what kind of work do you do? So I had, by that time, done this quilt, and I showed him some pictures of some other small projects, and he said, well, you seem to know more than anybody else about this machine, so you need to write a book. So I said to him, well, I don't know how to do that. I've never written a book. And so the dealer said to me, my wife and I will help you write a book. They have never written a book either. So the three of us decided, I left that day embarrassed that I hadn't showered, but, with a book deal, and I went on my way and I finished and washed my windows and made arrangements to begin the book. The first thing I did was to begin the projects. Getting the projects together and taking pictures along the way for a beginner. And I knew that there were so many people out there. This machine has been a mystery machine. Everywhere I go, to dealers and customers alike. So I started that process, and I got a call from Nancy Siemens' people that she wanted to feature my book on her TV show. Unfortunately, I hadn't written the book yet. I had one morning to write the directions, send them to her, and create a cover for her to do her TV show. So for her to do what she did, I had one morning to pull that information together with diagrams, come up with a cover, and I thought, you know, other people make decisions about what a cover should be. So I thought, well, this is what I came up with, and very short on time. You know, the taping was I didn't have 2 days or 3 days, because they had to do the taping. So this is what I came up with, and the company liked it, and Taccone, the Baby Lock company, does not publish books, but they published this one. So this is how this book was born. Well, in a couple years, I had done some more experimenting and done some more art quilts. So there's also a companion booklet, and this is like an inspiration or idea book that can also be ordered. And many of the projects that are in here, I'm going to be demonstrating today how I did them. So I have the finished pieces, and I also have them in stages. Okay, I'm going to put this right here. Can I put this down? Okay, I'm going to put this here. Because nobody seemed to know anything about felting, I decided to take a felting class so that I would understand. You know, in this day and age, we have technology constantly helping us do things easier, helping us do tedious tasks easier. And so felting is no different. So what is felt? Actually, what is happening in the felting process, you're probably familiar with felt that looks like this. It is non-woven fibers that are so entangled with each other that it's created a sheet of fabric. So in the process of felting, I have some pictures for you, and maybe I will take it out just to get rid of the glare. Felting is actually quite popular around the world. It's been done for thousands of years. And this was actually a movie. And remember, I'm educating myself at this point. I'm trying to learn what to do, what traditional felting is, so I can reproduce that on the machine. So what you're seeing here is you are seeing a sheep herder shearing the sheep, laying the fiber out on the ground, and it's being beaten with sticks. I don't understand what the beating with sticks is, but that has been done for thousands of years, and it is a way of cleaning the fleece. Of course, nowadays we have washing machines. They are laying the fleece out as flat as they can get it, wetting it down with warm soapy water. Then the women have rolled it up into another fabric, and they're rolling, hundreds and hundreds of times they're rolling. And when they get tired of rolling, they tie it on the back of a camel, and the camel pulls it around the yard and rolls some more. So I went down to my baby lock dealer, and they were back ordered on camels, so I came home with a Embellisher machine to make it easier. But this family is from Central Asia, and these are the things that they make, these beautiful rugs and these beautiful houses called yurts. Now, some of my education came from the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival. I was a big fan of that. For several years, I would come down. It was so terribly exciting to see the sheep shows and the dog shows, and of course have some wool binges and yarn binges. And I am not a spinner or a knitter. I'm a quilter. And I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I was going to incorporate this medium into my quilts. So I took a class, and this was the class I took up in Pennsylvania to make a scarf. This is called Nuno felting, and this is done by laying a piece of very sheer silk chiffon down, and I have pictures of that as well. So you lay the silk, the wool roving, and if you're not familiar with what wool roving looks like, it is the fleece that's come off the animal, and this one has been dyed and carded. And I'll show you the carding process in a minute. But this is the hair, for lack of a better word, off of the sheep, and it's laid out in a very thin layer. It looks like a thick layer, but it denses up quite a bit in the felting process. Warm soapy water is poured over it. This is a person doing this at home. Did I do that too fast?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
You leave it right there on the...
Okay, leave it right here.
Yeah,
okay.
There you go.
Good idea. So she's pouring warm soapy water over it, and what is actually technically happening is each of those hairs or those fibers has scales all along it, just like we have with our hair. And those scales open in the presence of warm soapy water and agitation. If you've ever shrunk a wool sweater, you'll know what I'm talking about. The agitation of the washing machine and the dryer causes the hairs to entangle tighter and tighter and tighter until you have a solid mass of a sheet of fabric, this has been done commercially, but this is what is technically happening when you are felting. So she's poured the water over, got it really soapy. She's got gloves on, and she's rubbing. So in our class, we did this. We rub. And people who are really into this, they're as passionate as we are about our fabric and our quilting supplies. And they don't have a problem with rubbing for a couple hours. So then the next stage was to roll it up, and I actually have this rolled up in bubble wrap because I did not have any camel skins on hand. And I rolled it up in bubble wrap and physically rolled hundreds of times. Then you unroll it and roll it up the other way, sideways, and you roll hundreds of times. You bang it on the table, you throw it on the floor. That shocks the fibers into grabbing each other more and more and more, and at the end of the day, you make an appointment with the chiropractor and you have a scarf. I thought there has got to be an easier way.
Maybe you tied it to the bumper and dragged it out.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, so then I took another felting class. Remember, I'm a quilter. This world is foreign to me. I have to learn how to do this. And we live in a very fortunate day and age where we have access to learning anything that we want to learn. My husband was a pastor for 20 years, and he became a professor training ministers. So for 14 years in Pennsylvania. So one of the things I learned from being a professor's wife is through hundreds of students. He would have hundreds of students over the course of a year that he would work with. And all of them had a mindset that I felt that I could adopt to my life, and that is, you can learn anything in one semester. A semester is a season. And we have access, we have videos we can buy. We have videos that are free that we can download. We can learn to do just about anything we want to do if we take the time to study it and learn it and work with our machine. You don't have to, many times when you get to be middle-aged and you've raised children and you've gone through half your life or 3/4 of your life, you think you can't learn anything new. And these young students, they challenged me that I can keep learning new things. And I don't have to be dependent on what someone else knows. I can develop things that my own mind, as the wheels are turning in my own mind, I can find ways, and I'll get to that a little bit later. So in my journey, I began to take classes because I work with fabric, not wool, and I don't know how it's supposed to be. So this class was using the hand felting tool, the Clover hand felting tool. It came with a brush. I looked at this brush and I thought, what do you do with this? Well, I didn't know that the brush was meant to be the base upon which you hand felt, which is what Nancy was demonstrating. I never knew that. So I used to brush my felted works with it, thinking it made more sense to use some kind of foam. So this is a little piece of felting foam that I got, but I only use it to travel because it fits in my suitcase. You can use any kind of foam rubber to do this, and I'll be showing you using 2 different hand tools. This one has 5 barbed needles, and these are the same needles that are in your embellisher machine. So I took my again, this is a Nuno felted scarf. I have silk on the bottom. I have the curls that were laid on top, and it took us a whole day to do this. And I thought, well, these people are really into this. And I wore it with a black wool coat when it got cold enough, and there was more that fell off on my coat than there was on the scarf. So I said, you know what? I ran it under my embellisher machine, and I could run it under again because it's worn. This is several years old now, and I've worn this. I wear this every winter. I love it. People love it. And I got these sheep curls from a sheep named Hannah at the Sheep and Wool Festival, and I have a picture of her in here. So anyway, that was the second process of felting that I learned.
What was the base for that?
This is a silk habitai, which would be the kind of silk that a silk blouse would be made out of. It's opaque. It's not sheer like the chiffon. Okay, so I made some, I did some scarves. And I have several of them here, and I'm going to pass them around. And again, I have been collecting now at this point yarns, and I better put this on me so I don't drop it. An hour on the machine.
How many days without the machine?
I meant the whole process from start to end, not just the embroidery.
There's no embroidery.
I'm embellishing.
Embellishing.
How long does it take?
Yeah, from the start to finish, so
Okay.
the felt from the very beginning to the end.
Okay, that's a very good question because jumping forward, I've been traveling around the country teaching people how to use this machine and making scarves. And it takes, I'll say, 2 hours max to do a scarf. This is usually a half-day class project, but I will get to that on how I did that. I just wanted to show you some of these. This is done on silk. It's raw edge. There is no sewing whatsoever. There's actually no sewing whatsoever on any of these except for the edges. I'm going to take these off and talk about those in a minute. So I'll pass this around. This is just wisps of wool on a silk. This is Nuno felting. And the edges have also been run through the embellisher, and I'm going to actually do this for you. So this is, I'm still in the introduction stage, for those of you who are wondering. Okay, so then I fell in love with some of that wonderful hand-dyed yarn at the Sheep and Wool Festival, and I had to wear it. And I happen to have some sheer. This is actually a polyester sheer chiffon, and polyester doesn't usually work well because it can get very scratchy. But this one worked pretty well, and I love some people love it, and they hate it. That's just yarn. This one came from the sheep Hannah. Each summer I would go to the festival, I would go to a certain booth, and the lady there who owned Hannah would save a bag of her curls for me. These are Hannah's curls, and they stay perfectly curled, and they're very delicate. And one year I went to the festival to get my yearly bag. I would take it home, I would wash it, I would dry it, and I have a blog that has all this information on it, on how I did things, because I felt it was my mission to educate the world on how to do things with wool for quilters, because it wasn't out there. So anyway, one day I went and Hannah had died. Aww. So this came from Hannah. There is no sewing whatsoever. This is a piece of silk, a chiffon that's been folded in thirds, and all just layers of run through the embellisher, and I have on the top some decorative yarn, and I put the curls on, and I love to wear it. My husband thinks it's too gaudy, but you know what? Yeah, gaudy's good. Okay, this is another one that was done with just yarn, and this was done with ribbon yarn, no sewing except for the fringe. I did run a stitch along the fringe because I was afraid I would pull it off, because it's very long and it gets stepped on a lot, especially when I bring it around and show people.
What fabric did you use for that one?
Silk. Silk, because it feels good on your neck.
Is that the best fabric to use, is silk?
Silk or wool. You could make a wool scarf that's just heavier. Okay, then I decided I wanted to make indoor scarves, not just outdoor scarves. So I found some beautiful yardage And unfortunately, the supplier where I got this is no longer carrying it, but it's called French Devore Burnout. Now, this is a commercial silk. And so I cut it in scarf lengths and widths and ran it through my serger and serged the edges. And I'm going to actually sit down and do this for you in a minute. This one is partially done. It's not completely done. And these are a couple of the scarves that I've done with this method. And this became a class because it was so easy. And there were so many people out there that had bought the embellisher machine because they had to have it, but they didn't know why. And they didn't know what to do with it, and they were too afraid to take it out of the box. You know, incidentally, I'm still that way. I was telling Kathy Brown, she did a presentation on the Cameo, and someone has given me a Cameo, and I've been too afraid to take it out of the box. So I still do that. But anyway, these scarves were done that way with serged edges because the act of felting the wool on causes the edges to flute up, and it would be impossible to get a nice straight serged line. So you have to serge first, and then these are what those look like. Okay. My real reason.
What's that silk called?
Devore. It's actually two different fibers. One with a chemical has been burned away so that the silk becomes sheer. So you have sheer in some spots and satin in others. My real reason for the embellisher was I look at these beautiful paintings, and can you get those without glare? Oops. These are impressionistic paintings, and I like to, as a quilter, I like to collect picture books, and I collected a book on impressionistic painters, and I loved the landscapes, and to me they looked like wool. Not having an art background or being able to draw, I felt I could see in my mind what was possible, but my hands didn't know how to do it. So this was the painting that was the original, and this was my needle felted prototype. Can you see that? Done on this machine. I learned that I had to experiment in different disciplines. I would watch painting videos so I would understand how to layer things, so you would get the light and the dark, you could get shadow, you could get dimension. These were all things that I really hadn't worked with being a quilter. So one of my pieces I brought with me, one of my art pieces, this is step one, the photograph. This is step two, the underpainting, which if any of you know about painting, you have to have an underpainting. And in order to create, what the Impressionists, what they did, in order to create the light and the dark areas to make something realistic, you actually lay down the first layer and you get your lights and darks established at that time. Can somebody hold up the finished painting, which is right there? Yep, you can take it off, yep. So this was step two, and I'll show you step three. I have a picture of it, but it's right here, so. Okay, so what you're looking at, see how the sun is bouncing off the side of the house and the fence? Well, that was established. Do you need her to hold that up in front of you? That,
if you want it on the display.
yeah, okay. Okay. Can you come over here and just stand in front of the camera?
You know, like right in front of us. We can see the screen, so don't worry about where you are relative to us.
What you're looking at is you can see the yellow underlay under there, and the blue under there, and yellow again, and yellow under here. And that underpainting, when you're layering it with wool, the wool fibers actually entwine with one another, and you get these different colors meshing together, and you get very interesting painterly techniques. And this was something that in my process of developing art for this machine, I was absolutely astounded at what could be done and how realistic it could be. And of course, there were different kinds of sheet produced different kinds of wool, and I got into that. For example, okay. At the Sheep and Wool Festival, I bought this stuff called Peace Fleece. Is anybody in here woolly, sheepy person? Not very many. Okay. Okay. This is called Peace Fleece, and this is considered inferior material for a spinner or a knitter because it's very chunky and coarse and short fiber, but it makes the most fantastic foliage. I mean, all I had to do was lay it down. I'm doing it in the sky right now, but just so you can see, is lay it down and felt it in, and I had foliage. So what I have here is I have dark, medium, and light, and instant bushes. I was elated.
What's your backing?
Okay, so when I'm doing a painting, I'm going to actually do one. It's on a flannel background because flannel can take the action of the needles all day long without disintegrating. Your quilting fabric, much to my dismay, I wanted to make clouds in a quilt, but it compromises the fibers of the cotton, especially batik, which is very tightly woven. So I will show you the workaround of that because I have a quilt with me here where I got around that issue. Okay, but I just wanted to show you where I was going with this and how it developed.
So even your base was also wool? Or you said you had to
It's flannel.
you said you had to lay a base following that.
Yes. So this first layer, I'm going to pass this around.
Okay.
I'll pass this around. Yes.
I have a question. Do you ever use alpaca?
Yes, I'm glad you asked. It just so happened that I had an alpaca living in my neighborhood named Maybelline. And this is her picture. If I can find it. It's in my little booklet. Here's Maybelline. Her name is Maybelline. She's an alpaca with black eyeliner. At least that's what it looks like. And this piece was done with alpaca fiber. And alpaca fiber is very thin, so it works really well. I used it in this piece for the mist coming on the water because it's very thin. Wool can be heavy at times depending on what bag I brought home from the festival. The fibers can be different from different sheep. Even the same sheep can produce different kinds of wool that can be used in different places. Alpaca is always good for clouds and for something very sheer. Alpaca and rabbit Angora fibers are very good too, but very hard to find.
Underpainting, were that pieces of flannel on top of the flannel background, or were you actually painting?
I was using this, and I'll be showing you how to do it. Okay. So I am laying this down and felting it in layers.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay.
Okay.
Must be pulled back out.
Not at this point. There is a point at which, if you make a mistake, and I have a painting actually done in layers where I can show you what that looks like, because you're seeing this and then you're seeing the finished product and you can't see how I got there, and I do have it in stages. Okay, and again, all of this is on my blog. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start demonstrating how to do a scarf with the embellisher. Actually, I'm going to do something just before I do that. I'm going to show you what the embellisher is. So I'm going to take off the little tray. It looks like a sewing machine. So it looks very much like a sewing machine, but all there is to this machine are these 12 barbed needles that go up and down. If I open up the bottom where the bobbin would normally be, there's absolutely nothing there. There are no buttons, no computer chips. All you can do with this machine is put your foot on the pedal and run those 12 barbed needles up and down, and you can do all this, which I think is terribly exciting. Okay, before I get into the scarf, because it is printed, I want to do something on plain. I'm using flannel. The reason I started using flannel, it was because it was very thin. When you are felting it, things become very thick and dense very quickly. If you use felt that you buy in the store, there are different kinds of felt. Some of it degrades under the needles, or what you make out of it gets very thick and dense. So being that I'm trying to make this work with my quilts, I want it as thin as possible.
So where do you get the felt that you use?
So I am making my own felt out of flannel.
Or you take the flannel and run it on?
Yeah, this is flannel.
Yeah.
That's my base that I'm using right now.
You're using flannel all the time when it's not a chiffon type of fabric.
Right.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, you can use different fabrics, but and again, I'm one of those people that would go out the day after Halloween when fabric was $1, you know, weird fabric is $1 a yard because they're trying to get rid of it. And I put everything I could find in my sewing room under this machine to see what would happen. And that is all in my book. As a matter of fact, when I wrote the first 40 pages of the book is for those of us who are afraid of this machine, and when we turn it on, we don't know what to do next. So what I did is I had a series of exercises of things you can do just to figure out, because sometimes a project is too intimidating. You're not ready to make something. You have to figure out how it works. So I'm going to just do a bit of a demo on how it works, and then I'll go into the scarf. Okay, so when I am I've taken a piece of thin wool. Maybe I'll use a different color so you could see it better. Something darker. Very thin wool roving. As thin as I can get it. And I'm going to lay it down. This just keeps it in place. This would be like a basting tool. I'm also using large gauge netting. And what that does is at this point the wool is very raw, and it can get caught underneath in the hardware around here. So this large gauge netting keeps it in place. Because this is a circle shape, I'm kind of felting in circles, and it's very similar to free motion quilting. Okay, so here is my first layer, and of course there's some bald spots, but this is what it looks like on the front, and you can see how it's been punched through on the back. Better slow down. So now I'm going to add another color. My dealer, my local dealer who I wrote the book with, is an inventor of tools, sewing tools, and I am an inventor of methods, and we have had a partnership since we wrote the book. The book was released in 2010. We've had a partnership where we make quilting tools together, and I'm going to be showing more of those tomorrow. But the moral of that story is never go to Walmart unwashed. You never know where your destiny lies on any given day. Okay, so there I've added another layer. Now I'll put the yellow on top because you can see it. You can see the purple and the red have mixed together. And I could keep going, but you get the idea. Once it's been felted in the first time, often I'll go back over it again. I don't have it really enough on here, but I just want to show you the process where I don't need the large gauge. That's not tulle. That's not what Nancy used. I'll be showing you that in a minute. This is the large gauge netting. And you can get it anywhere. Yes, it's like used for crinolines. It's not a it's 50 cents a yard or $1 a yard. Comes in. It doesn't matter what color you use. I'm just using it again to keep the fibers from getting caught, and it does not felt in because of the holes in it. It doesn't felt in. Okay, and then here's the back, and you see how that is? Okay.
If it's finer, does it get connected in there then?
Yes, it would. It would get felt. It would be part, and you might want to do that at some point. That would be part of the design where you have netting on top that you want to show that you want to felt it in. But I'm using netting as at this point just as a basting tool as well. Okay, so if I have time at the end, I'll do a carding demo. And I'll say that.
I don't think it's going to be carding in
Yeah. Well, it depends on how far you want to go with this. Okay, so here is my half-finished scarf, and I'm going to lay it down, and I have 3 colors of fiber. This is commercial fiber that I got, and it's usually very, very thin, very good quality merino wool, and just the way it comes, it's very thin, very easy to work with. So I'm going to lay that down in some spots, and I'm going to tack it in place, and you can see how it's causing the silk to ripple. Just random.
On your scarves that you have designs on, do you draw designs on the silk first?
No, this is commercial. This is I bought.
I mean the ones that are really have a real design to them.
No, those looked like hand-dyed silk, and that's why I bought them. I bought the silk dyes, but I haven't actually done it yet.
Like you're painting the lines, the house, the grids.
Oh, are you talking about the painting on the house?
No, I'm talking about the scarves, but the designs that you have on there.
Oh, yes.
How do you keep the fiber so perfect?
Oh, yes. Okay, I did use silk pins, and I pinned the fiber on the scarf ahead of time to keep the grid. Otherwise, I wouldn't know if it was straight or not. Yes, I did. I did do that. And maybe there's an easier way to do it but I just remember I'm a quilter coming at this. This is a completely different animal, and I'm noticing that this this machine is a misunderstood machine in the world of sewing people, and it finds itself in sewing stores in the world of sewing people, which is us. But you take this to a place of wool and fiber people who are always looking for new, exciting ways to use their fiber. So this needs to be marketed at the Sheep and Wool Festival, where people will... yes, yes, good idea. Okay, so I am running my wool. Yes.
How did you get the window panes perfectly square?
Very good question. These tools come with replacement needles because you break them, right? I taught a class once, and they were all new at this, and they bought their tools for the day, and in the first hour they had all broken. I didn't know that was possible. So fortunately, I order bulk needles that look like this. Okay, so can you see that? You see that? I probably should show you what these look like while he's here, what I'm working with. This is what the 12 needle head looks like. And it's these needles, which are actually a commercial needle that they use to make batting that we are familiar with, needle punch. And then here's the other one. This one is the 3-needle pen, and the shaft of the needle is inside the tool. And then this is a 5-needle pen, and I notice I've got one's broken off. And this punches, when you punch it down, this springs back, and the shaft is inside here. I take a single needle, and that's how I did the window panes and the slats on the one single, yes. But
One stitch at a time.
yes.
Good question.
Yes. I'm sorry.
Some kind of draw idea where you want the window. I mean, it looks like you've been,
Yeah, I used a photograph. I started with a photo. And you know what? That's my last demo. What time do we have? That is my last demo on how I built a painting from scratch, and I have one in stages. So you can see how I did that. 12:45, okay. Okay, good, I have time.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yes.
You use just wool. Can you use other things, other fabrics?
Yes.
Like dog hair?
Yes. Yes, cat hair, dog hair. If you have really nice, yes, if you save yours and it's really nice, there's no reason why not. Because it's a fiber with scales and it will felt.
And I had all the strands that she had not in her tail like that. I have long nails.
Yes.
To be a natural fiber, but that's what this scales. In other words, polyester nylon doesn't have.
No, but you know that beautiful Angelina fiber? As long as a very sleek, lustrous fiber like silk or Angelina or polyester, anything that's pretty that you want, is how I did this one. I carded it in with wool. So there's a little bit of sparkle. And the wool keeps it, well, one of the scarves has that in it. If you notice the glitter, that will pull out because it's plastic. But because it's been felted in, the felting process, that keeps it in. Does that answer your question? Okay, so that is the scarves. And I'll pass that around. This is partially done.
I learned early not to pull too hard on there. I broke like half of my 12 needles.
Yes, yes. Okay, I'm going to do another demo on something completely different from, I've been working up to this point on a base. Now what my base is what Nancy was doing in the video. And the base is going to be inside the felting. So I have made a sheet of felted material that is strong enough to be used for a garment if you wanted to make a vest or a felted garment with your needle felting machine, or if you wanted to make the leaf appliques. My leaves on this quilt were made this way, and I will demonstrate what that is. Okay, so this is the tulle in 2 layers. You see that? And the tulle is your very fine netting that they use in bridal veils or prom dresses or any kind of that beautiful, it comes in gazillion colors. It's not expensive. I usually try to match the color of I'm making a new fabric, and I try to match the color of my new fabric with the color of tulle. In this case, it's purple.
Do you have 2 layers of it?
I have 2 layers because one layer is not quite strong enough for this.
So you're putting 2 layers on the bottom, one on top of
The 2 layers are going to end up in between. So,
Didn't Nancy do tulle, roving, tulle, and then punch? Isn't that what she did?
no, because she was using the other netting. So right now I'm using 2 different nettings. One will become the skeleton of the fabric, and the other will become the overlay to keep it from...
So you have 2 layers of tulle, and then you put the roving on top of that, and then put the...
I'm going to put roving on the top and the bottom in 2 stages. You got to watch me. I'm going to do it right before your very eyes. Yeah. So here it is. I've got 2 layers of tulle. I've got some roving. I'm going to tack it in place. I'm going to put my netting overlay just to keep it from getting snarled up in the machinery.
And that's the same coarse netting that we're using before?
This black netting with the large, yes. It's like a topping. Think of an embroidery topping that keeps things from happening. That this is the same idea. Okay, so I felted that in. I can peel off my netting, my top netting, my topping, flip this over, and get some more of my purple wool. Very, very thin layer because it denses up quite a bit in the felting process. Put that, now I'm on this is the bottom. So I'm going to put this on the bottom side of my 2 layers of tulle. So the tulle ends up in between wool. This process, I read about somebody was doing this with wash-away stabilizer. Now this is in the early days when none of us knew what we were doing. And the person made a beautiful vest. And I thought to myself, I hope she, A, didn't go out in the rain, and B, had something on underneath. Okay, and I peel off the topping netting, and what I have is I have wool on the top side, wool on the bottom side, wool completely in between. This is an unfinished piece, so you can see some bare spots. Get the camera can get that. So I would just go back and repeat until there are no more bare spots, and what I end up with is a sheet of fabric with the tool. I've left the tool around the edges so you can see it. It's in between the wool. And it is now a new piece of fabric that I can cut out. I can take my favorite quilting patterns, my favorite applique patterns, and make appliques that I can put on my quilts. And this is actually the one I used. I created fabric with different colors. I'll get the camera.
It doesn't make any difference which side you add the wool to?
You got to add it on both sides for this to work, so that your appliques, I'm going to pass this around. These are pinned on so you can actually pull them off and look at them. They're now, I cut them out. There's my cardboard template. And here's my finished leaf. I stitched the veins on just like you saw Nancy do. And you'll even, if you look at this one closely, I used green tulle inside yellow leaf. Bad idea. And I learned, if you got to match your tulle with what's your fabric, because you see green tulle through. Right.
Linda, is that what you did for your windows and all major fabric and cut them out?
No, that is different, and that's my last demo. That's the best one. Okay, so I'm going to pass this around because these flowers were actually cut out and put on another quilt. Oh, you know what? I'm going to pass this around with it so you see where it came from. There you go. Okay. You can take those the fabric that you made on your embellisher and feed it through the AccuQuilt Go machine. This was the AccuQuilt Go Rose of Sharon die. And all I did is, these are raw edge, so I didn't have to sit there with my scissors and cut out each petal and it's just instantly done. And then these are just been stitched on in the center.
We're going to pass it back this way. Pass it this way. Oh, they did? No, they didn't see it yet. Hold on. Keep passing on your back. You guys see this?
Cardstock, yes. This is in the spinning and knitting people. Fiber people know all about these. And I went and I learned how to use these at the Maryland Sheep and Wool Festival because somebody was doing a demo. I do have time to do a demo. Once you get into wool, you will find after a while that if you keep your wool in garbage bags stashed in the corners of your sewing room, somehow miraculously it can begin, just from you moving it around and raking through it, it begins to felt, dry. So it can get very ropey and very difficult to peel off very thin layers. So I learned very quickly that I need to learn how to use carding paddles. You can also use pet brushes. But of course, I saw these and I had to have them. Who doesn't like new tools? Okay, so I'm going to do a demo on how to use these. And I'm going to take my felted rope, and I'm pulling out locks of wool, very thin. And already it's combed quite a bit. I mean, even at this point it may be enough, but if not. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is the carding process, where I'm going to take the second comb.
Your arm is away for the camera.
Oh, is it? Okay. How's that? Do it left-handed. This way? Like this? How's that? Okay, so I'm carding it. I'm pulling it off one, peeling it off the other one, and I'll card it again.
That's very impressive.
So that holds straight, good for that part.
I have a granddaughter whose hair could use some of that.
Yes.
It's down to her roots.
And, you know, they have this on YouTube. Then what you can do, what these spinning people do, when they have carded, they roll it into roll eggs. So I just roll this up into a roll egg. And when I am on the road doing demonstrations, it keeps my wool nice and carded and fluffy. So I'm going to pass these two around. And I'll pass around one of these with carding paddles. Paddles, and this is a roll egg. It's usually the first weekend in May. It could, and there have been times when I had shorts. There's other times I had my winter fur-lined coat. First weekend of May around here. Howard County Fairgrounds, yes.
That next weekend is going to be an alpaca. Yes.
Okay. Oh man, I live in North Carolina now. Yes.
A bunch of cars. I came by, there would be lots of cars. So maybe I saw the sign.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you were saying.
Maybe it's this weekend also. I think it's because I saw tons of cars.
Ooh, I might not show up tomorrow. Oh, okay. Oh, I know, there was one more picture I wanted to show. Okay. In my journey of discovery, I took another photograph and this one is called Bottle Study. You know how Kathy Brown said always do a test? Well, I found that I needed to do tests as well. So this was the test piece for my bottle study, and what you're looking at is wool on the front, wool on the back, and flannel in between. So so you'll understand the flannel, it does make it quite thick. You don't want it any thicker than that. If I was to use wool felt, it would be way too thick and dense and not stable, not as stable. Flannel is a woven fabric. One of the challenges I had is transferring the design, and I'm going to show you that, but I just wanted to show you this bottle study. This is the finished piece. I wanted to see if I could get, with wool, the challenge of light and shadow on bottles to make them look transparent. And this became a study because I wasn't happy with it, so I did it again bigger. So this is 2 feet by 3 feet, this one. And it's mounted on a frame like these. Another challenge I had as a quilter is my quilting fabric didn't look good as borders. It was too heavy. So I've gotten where I've bought these little bit wider frames, and I usually finish the back because I'm a quilter, and that's what you do, right? You have a nice back. But I wanted you to see how this has just been stapled onto an artist frame that you buy very cheaply in a Michael's or someplace like that, your artwork. So you can mount and finish your artwork. Okay, so I am going to pass this around. You can see in the upper photo, this is the first layer, and you can see my raw flannel right here, and you can see my first layer, the colors that are underneath on the bottles. The light and shadow is being established first rather than last. Well, I did these two. I did the house and the bottles over a 2-week period when we had those terrible storms that came in. It was maybe 3-4 years ago. Do you remember in the winter when we were all, you as well as us, we were housebound for 2 weeks. We had one storm after another that disabled all the cities on the East Coast, and we had power where we were, but a lot of people didn't have power. The snowplows couldn't keep up. We were snowed in, and that was when I thought, too bad this couldn't happen more often. Because you know how it is, you never have enough time to do all that you want to do. I was in my glory.
When you use flannel, you just use plain white flannel?
I bought Quilters flannel because I knew it would be good quality and I could buy it in 108 inches. Pass that around. Okay, my last demo, I'm going to show you landscape. Oh, I forgot one. I forgot one. I gotta show you this one first. Before I do the landscape, I need to show you this applique as well. This is one of the early What you're looking at is a flannel quilt that's already been quilted. The appliques were felted separately and sewn on. And this is the process. I'll just show you the steps. I'm going to get rid of this so you can see. I started with, this is actually Indian basket designs that have been simplified. And I used a children's washable marker to get the pattern on there because none of my quilting marking tools worked very well on flannel. If any of you have worked with flannel, it's very hard to hold a design. So I like to use children's washable markers because number one, they always work and they wash out. You're pretty much covering it up. This would be stage 2.
Can I ask you on stage 1, it was so narrow. Did you use a single needle in that like you were telling us?
This one?
Yeah, in order to keep the colors separate. How did you?
Okay, I'm going to do that.
Oh. Okay.
Right before your very eyes.
Do you do these on both sides too?
No, just one, and it looks like it's been done on both sides, doesn't it? So I'm going to actually do some of this. I'm going to use the 3 needle pen tool. I'm actually not following the design at this point because this will be a UFO. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But okay, so if I had lines, excuse me, that I'm trying to stay in lines, then I can just use my pen tool to tack it in place. And I'll do one more over here. No, I don't do a lot of clothing, and I'm more, again, I'm coming from the wall art point of view more than the clothing point of view, but there's no reason why any of these methods can be used to adorn clothing. Okay, so I've tacked that in place, but you can see it will still come off and get caught in the machinery, so I need my netting. And the netting gets chewed up after a while, so you just have to find a new area that's still good. That's not anything to worry about. If I wanted very fine detail like the window panes, then I would be using a single needle at this point to get the detail. But there's other ways that you can get detail. Okay, and it really doesn't look like anything nice until you outline it with yarn. See the outline? So I will show you how to do that. The Baby Lock Embellisher has a yarn port. It comes with a tool that looks like this, that most people lose within the first day that they pull it out of the box because it's in with your paperwork. And it falls on your floor and your vacuum cleaner finds it first. But this is what it looks like, and the purpose of it is to push the yarn down between the needles, down here. So I'm going to actually do that.
I don't either.
There's also yarn holders to feed it up. The earlier models didn't have these. Just kind of, I could put this here. There are slots for yarn and the flat ribbon type yarns. I could do this, put this here, and feed it under. Sometimes I've done this, fed it under this way like I was couching it. But I'm going to do it with the yarn port, which is a hole right down through the machine. And those of you that have been sewing a long time, do you remember that this hole in this position used to be where you put oil? And they have big red letters, "Do not oil," because this is just an opening all the way down through the center of the needles. And I have needle nose locking pliers, or tweezers, that I can pull this through. Come on. Oh, I might have to push that down again. Get that through. I can see it too. I have a little too much in there. Oh, come on. This never happened before. I'm going to have to start again. Sorry, ladies. I got a little too much down there, I think. So I'm going to start a little bit further back. There it is. These lockable tweezers are really good for changing needles as well. Okay, so I have it. I'm going to pull it straight down. If you break a needle, usually what happens is that raw needle edge will puncture holes and you'll get loops on the back of your work and not know why it's there. I really don't want to lose this. Just got to put it in a safe place.
So when you break a needle, can you replace that individually, or do you have to replace the whole thing?
No, you can replace it individually, and I'll show you what that looks like. There are individual little tiny screws that hold each individual one in there, and if I use my needle nose pliers or tweezers, lockable tweezers, I can grab onto that needle and it'll hold that needle until I get it in and out. These things are very, very strong needles. They're different from sewing machine needles. It does take a lot to break them, actually.
Once you break them, if they're broken, one bends another one, and then they miss the hole to go down in, you can have a piece.
Yes. Yep. Okay, this does have a presser foot lifter, and that you can see I can still move around pretty easily. It also has, remember we had the pressure foot presser button? We still have that here. If this was really thick and dense, I could raise my presser foot up a little bit, but this is not. This is a pretty flat piece. And I'm going to apply my yarn, make sure that it's will freely come off the ball. This back here is a cone holder in case you're using a cone.
Is that wool of yarn you're using?
I'm using what it's pretty yarn. Pretty. Undetermined origin. Now I can go around my appliques this way. Of course, I'm doing the old stipple stitch pattern because I think it looks really cool with pretty yarn. And I'm making it up as I go along, but you could have this marked out if you wanted to. This would be nice if you wanted to do a boiled wool scarf with flowers and garland. That's how I see this would look nice. Now I'm going to pull this, just like with your sewing machine, you should only pull in one direction, because if I pull backwards, it'll get caught on the needles. And this is what I have, but it's not at this point quite stable. I'm going to cut this off, pull it through. It's not quite stable because I can pull this off. So if I was wearing it, that would pull off. But at least I have it there so I can go back over it.
You don't use your weave on
I could use that. I could use it, but this is pretty stable. Stable enough where I can just go over it with my needles. And it'll do a pretty good job. What I've done is, because I'm a sewing person and I like to have interchangeable feet, I bought another 12 needle head and I put 2 or 3 or 6 needles in one side if I want to do fine work. I can switch out the head instead of taking needles in and out, switch out the head, and that is how I put the window panes on. I put them on by hand, but then I run them over with just a couple of needles on the machine so I can do fine detail work and just switch out the head rather than the needles. What's that?
that kept them from spreading too much.
Right, it'll spread the wool. Those 12 needles are 1/2 inch around punch. And if you want a tiny thin punch. Okay, so you can see how the wool has come through on the back. And that means that it's pretty stable.
So the needle head that you just used on that, is it the 12?
It's the 12, yes, yeah. But I could use just the side, like one side of that, I'll get 6 needles along the edge if I wanted to do that. One more thing before I move on is these little round circle things right here. This is that hand-dyed yarn that I can't resist when I go to festivals. I have it in many different colors. The thick and thin. So I'm going to make a little round circle. I can use a single needle, or I can use my 3-needle pen, just tacking it in place.
Wow, I want this rough.
All right, how we doing, Linda, for time?
Okay.
About 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
We want to
Okay.
try to get going here for lunch, so we
Okay.
go track. So
My last 5 minutes will be fortunately I have my last demo done in stages, and I can just show you the stages because you already know how I did it.
Oh, that is great.
Okay, and then I put this over top and run it under here, circular. And I actually need to raise this a little bit because it's heavy.
How do you know you need to adjust that? Does it drag?
Yeah, it does. It was catching, so I, raised it a little bit. Okay, I got the word.
What if you want to attach that to like a shirt? Do you just use the shirt fabric and put that on the top of it? Or something?
You could do that, but you don't know what. Yeah, I would actually make an applique first and put it on because you don't know what the action of the needle is going to do to your shirt. Okay, I'm just going to show you because I think you've seen enough of my actual felting. You don't need to watch me do that. So I'll show you the stages of a landscape. Okay, so this one is finished. This is a class project. I've been traveling around the country. This is a workshop that people who don't know anything about wool or felting do this. This is this finished. This is how they started. Now I usually put the pattern on myself and I give it to them already done. Otherwise it'll take half the day just getting the pattern transferred. So this is the first, what we have here is, I've taken a photograph. Here's my photograph. This is how you would create a painting from a photograph. There's my photograph. I took some clear acetate. You could use tablecloth plastic, any kind of clear plastic, and a Sharpie marker, and outline the basic shapes of the tree. One of the things I learned in studying painting is that you don't want a meatball tree. So it's been outlined, and those outlines have been colored in. I did this with crayon, where I have dark, medium, light, dark, medium, light. So the next stage is...
Well, is that first stage done with that little punch, the thin punch out?
This first stage is just done with a marker.
Oh, just a marker.
On flannel.
Okay.
It's a marker.
It's like the sulky transfer pens on that.
Yes, there are all different kinds of transfer methods, but I find that flannel dries things out very quickly and very easily. The next stage is to outline the tree, just so you don't lose it when you're laying down your sky. And here this has been felted and this is not, and you can see it would bury the edges. I would lose the edges of my tree if I didn't tack in place just some of my tree color just to keep me from losing it. Okay, the next stage is, and I have everybody do this, forget that you're making a tree, think of it in terms of parts of the tree. You got your dark, your medium, light, dark, medium, light. Try to keep the parts. And then wherever it's got hash lines, those are sky holes. You need to have sky holes so that you can see through the tree. And I even have some little branches that I put in the sky holes, which is yarn that I collected from somewhere that I can use for my branches. And then this is almost finished. It's been laid down. I have some tree debris underneath, and I got some grass going down here. This has not been run under the machine, and this is what it looks like when I can still pull it off. My dark, medium, and light. Run that under the machine.
You're attaching those with a hand tool.
Yeah, I would attach these with a hand tool, and you can see how easily this comes off. It needs to be tacked down well enough to, because I can't put that under the needles. That'll just come right off. And then my finished painting. It's right here. And that's the method I use for any of the paintings that you see were done that way. Oh, right.
So on the lines of your house, then you must have used just like straight yarn?
On the lines, that's a good question. There is some distortion sometimes, just like with a quilt. When you get a quilt done, there's distortion. So I blocked that the same way I did a quilt because my front porch was falling down into my bushes. So in order to get all those white lines along the house straight, which was done in just, I didn't do it with yarn, I wet it and pinned it onto a piece of insulation board that I use to pin things on, and pinned it and put a fan on it to dry so it would dry straight, and it dried straight. Then I was able to sew the borders on the traditional way with it's actually been quilted. It's got some quilting on it, and I used upholstery fabric. So I do have some postcards and business card. If you're interested, more information is on my blog about wool felting. Don't have much quilting on there. It's mostly about felting. And you're welcome to come up and look at things, but we'll have to clean up pretty quickly for this afternoon. Yeah, we have lunch. You're welcome.